Is my audio and video okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's great.
great.
All right, so we are live right now. And so, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our viewers all around the world. We're so glad you joined us for the second edition of our Friday Fireside Chat. Um, Today's topic is about cloud security for fintech. So, we are joined by two experts in security, cloud security, and product management, Ram Boreda and Jayesh Chauhan. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this one. And I'm sure we'll learn a lot from you guys over the course of the next half an hour. So I'd just like to introduce our guests before we get started. I'll start with Ram. Ram Boreda has over 2 decades of experience in the product management and security space, from holding field CTO and product leadership roles at Palo Alto Networks, Prisma Cloud, to growing several cybersecurity startups, including Redlock. As a product management leader over the past 15 years, Ram has been successful in launching and managing enterprise and cloud security products at Amazon AWS, Cypher Cloud, and Verisign. Currently, he's serving as the VP of products at Egnyte. Ram is responsible for driving the product strategy, vision, and roadmap for data security, governance, and compliance solutions. Thank you so much for joining us, Ram. Really happy to have you. And for our next guest, Jayesh Chauhan is a security professional with over a decade of experience in the security space. And he is the founder of Cloud Village at DEF CON. In the past, he has been part of the security teams at PayPal and PwC and was the director of product security at Sprinkler. He has been a trainer at Black Hat conferences around the world, Nullcon, and AppSec New Zealand. He has also authored Cloud Security Suite, OWASP Skanda, and RFID Cloner. Currently, Jayesh runs his own cloud security training and consultancy firm, Cloudurance Security. He's also the leading the security charter at CoinSwitch. So thanks for joining us, Jayesh.
Hey, happy to be here.
Yeah. So I'd like my name is Anish Bhargav. I'm the security evangelist at AppSecEngineer, and I'm joined by Ganga Sumant, who's the cloud security engineer at AppSecEngineer. So
Hey guys.
so without further ado, let's get started. I'd like to direct my first question to Ram. Oh, by the way, before we get started, I just have one thing to say. In the description of our video on YouTube, you will find the link to the giveaway to the AWS security bundle. So this bundle contains the AWS security courses and our container security courses. So if you enter your details in the Google form, you will be entered into the giveaway, and drop a comment on our YouTube video. So you increase your chances of winning the AWS security bundle on AppSec Engineer. So that is something you can do. So let me just get started with the questions right away. All right. So Ram, you've been in the business of building and securing software for over 2 decades now. What are the biggest ways companies have changed their approach to secure software development? And more specifically, once cloud became the dominant technology, how did that change the threat landscape?
Yeah, Anish. So, thanks for having me. And yes, you are correct. It's been almost 20 years since I uh, started managing and building products for enterprise security and more recently cloud security. As you know, I started building security and compliance products in the on-premise world first, so at eSecurity and then Verisign. And about 10 years ago, as companies started moving to the cloud, I joined a startup known as Cypher Cloud, which is now part of Lookout, and then went on to another startup, Redlock, which is now part of Palo Alto Networks, Prisma Cloud. So
Right.
during this time, I've definitely helped a lot of clients, numerous companies, trying to move to the cloud. So I help them securely move their applications and data to the cloud. And you know while companies had to make significant changes, to answer your question about like what changes have companies made, while they had to make several significant changes, I'll highlight a few on this call here, right? So first things first is realization that existing tools, technologies and even processes that worked, in their on-premise world, where there was a perimeter and they could just secure the perimeter and then worry less about applications inside, do not easily migrate to the cloud. They are either impractical or ineffective. For example, vulnerability scanning and patching, if you're in an on-premise environment, it would happen once a week or once a month, in worst case, or in some cases once a quarter. But that doesn't really apply to the cloud, because most workloads in the cloud are so ephemeral that they are alive for only minutes or hours, right, at the most. So another example would be, again, unlike the present world, unlike in the on-premise world, uh, in the current, like, cloud environments, there is no fixed parameter. Your users are everywhere. uh, the cloud is pervasive. So both IT and security teams have realized that they cannot just use VPN and route all traffic to the corporate network and apply all of their security controls in one place, right? They have to now distribute and secure things uh, in many places, in the cloud, on mobile, wherever data and applications exist. So again, I can go through many examples like this, but fundamentally there has been a paradigm shift where companies have realized that they need to think differently when it comes to cloud.
Right. So, would you say that there's like, I mean, considering there's so many new technologies, and there's, a complete paradigm shift with things like, zero trust and all of that. Would you say those are kind of like, some of the new challenges that are taking time for people to figure out?
Yes, certainly. I mean, whether there are new technologies or new threat vectors, the fundamentals of and the first principles of security, and by extension compliance, do not change. It's just
Right.
that you have to adapt them uh, in cloud environments, which makes it challenging because not everything is in your control. Now there is a cloud
Right.
provider that's controlling and managing the infrastructure, and they do certain things. So
So there's a
yeah,
shared responsibility, right?
yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get to that in a second. I do want to make sure Jayesh has time to
Yeah, of course.
respond to similar questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. On to my next question for Jayesh. So you're a engineer turned cloud security trainer. So can you tell us what drove you to get into training once? I mean, you were once in security engineering. So what drove you to get into security training? And how has your new role changed your view on security?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, and thank you, Ram. Like, you can always elaborate more on things. Like, you come with a vast set of experience. I'll try to keep my answers precise. To answer your question, Anish, as a security engineer, I thought there was like a huge learning curve for me, right? And while it was supported by like the community events I've been to, like the network I have and the friends I've built, there was always this piece when it comes to cloud, right? Essentially, I've seen like the cloud has obviously taken the world by storm, and they're just servicing like services rolling out on a regular basis, and then there is a huge learning curve for people who want to use it as well. Security sometimes always has a step back, like as in it
Yeah.
is kind of like trying to chase
Yeah.
like development and functionality, and that essentially means that we have very few cloud security engineers out there in the world, and you're just fighting for like a bunch of people who have invested their time into the community work they've been doing, or like the way they've been involved in terms of learning like cloud security. So uh, while we have limited set of folks who know cloud security, training is a very neat hack into this whole ecosystem of building more people up rather than just fighting for a few set of talent. And everything has a learning curve. There is no doubt about that. But with cloud, at least the setup is easier.
Yeah.
Like setups, while like there is a lot to do, there is a lot of functionality which can be abused. Security for me essentially is abuse of functionality, and the trainings were like a take at like my trainings are specifically designed to to cover certain basic areas. Like if you're
Okay.
on cloud, you definitely would need these kind of like hands-on activities, these kind of practices which you need to have, and secure infra. But also I walk them, like I kind of build this kind of habit, or like in my training, that this is just what, like still have to look everything which we are securing as a functionality, and we're trying to secure it or abuse it. But as cloud moves forward, you'll always have more functionalities, more services which are coming up, and you just kind of copy and paste the framework of learning how we go about with my training, and that kind of enables you not just for the things which you've done so far, or
Okay.
the security which you're providing, but any new services which comes up, you can apply the similar framework and learn it, and then understand the functionality, and then see how the abuses can go around, and then eventually secure it. So uh, in a nutshell, it was essentially about building more talent rather than fighting for a set of talent. I hope that
Okay.
gives you a better idea. Yeah.
That's great because I think when it comes to training, you kind of have to develop your own research and all of that, and that is you kind of have to stay ahead of the curve. So I think that's one of the interesting challenges of being a trainer, right?
Yes. Yeah. One of the reasons why I do, like one of the things which I propagate with my training is more of a zero to hero journey,
Yeah,
because any new service comes up, you're still looking for another zero to hero journey, and the
yeah,
framework kind of helps. Yeah.
nice. All right, thanks for that. My next question to Ram. So, for a fintech company, what would you say are the most important cloud security controls that they would need to implement in your experience?
Yeah. So, first of all, I guess I would like to start by saying, security controls for fintech or financial services companies are not any different from other, industries, other regulated industries.
Right.
Yes, financial services is a very highly regulated industry. There are a lot more compliance-driven controls in addition to good security practices. But let's start with like the basic controls that every company, including financial services companies, need to implement, right? Which is good multi-factor authentication, or yeah, I guess now passwordless 502.0 standards-based authentication, uh, biometrics or certificates-based authentication, authorization, where you're ensuring that there is just enough access and just in-time access, where you're providing these privileges based on the principles of least privilege model. And then if you're financial services companies deal with data, so you want to make sure you're encrypting data, especially sensitive data, at rest, in motion, in use, and then you're ensuring that it's only accessible to folks that truly need it. There are things like segregation of duties based on what your role is, whether you're an application developer or a financial analyst.
Right.
You'll have different levels and different types of access to different environments. So again, there are many controls, but like the fundamental controls, security practices
Mm.
are equally applicable to these FinServ control companies. I think now enter the cloud, right?
Right.
So it's important for these uh, IT and security practitioners, both at
Mm.
FinServ and even in other verticals, that there is this notion of a shared responsibility model. Again, depending on whether you're using,
Right.
you moved your some of your applications, some of your data, and obviously users are going to the cloud and on premise, and depending on the cloud that you're dealing with, whether it's SaaS clouds like Salesforce, ServiceNow, where you might be putting some of your customer data, or infrastructure as service clouds like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, where you're running your applications that deal with both financial data and your customer data, or
Yeah.
just platform as a service, right? Like force.com platform, where you're building applications, but it's controlled by someone else. uh, you are responsible for some aspects of both infrastructure and security, right? The cloud service provider, whether it's IaaS, SaaS, or PaaS,
Yeah,
is taking care of different layers of that stack, right?
of
So
course. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
important for you as a security practitioner to understand what are you responsible for. Again, broadly speaking, we cannot get into a lot of details here, but broadly speaking, you're responsible for your users,
Mm-hmm.
configuration of your applications, and the data that you're putting in these clouds, right? So
Right.
you are responsible for those, and you just need to work with the cloud service provider and third party cloud security platforms, like multi cloud security platforms which are cloud agnostic, like Egnyte. um, you need to work with these tools and technologies to secure both your users and data in the cloud.
Okay. Thank you. So, Jayesh, my next question to you would be, in your experience, what are the most serious cloud security mistakes or pitfalls companies tend to make? And do you aim to solve these in your training specifically?
Yep. So this actually reminds me when I started with cloud, and the the very simple pitfall I saw was like someone came to me and said that we are on, like, this was a sales guy, and I asked him about, I'm like, hey, like, what are we doing for cloud security? I just stepped into the organization, and the person said, we are on cloud, so we are secure. So please don't start there. Right? There is too much to do in cloud, but I think the simple thumb rule will still be around abuse of functionality, right? And
Mhm.
you can do. I think the first thing that you should start with perimeter security, like do like a like at least a cloud security, like posture management. And I personally believe. And that's something I showcase with my trainings as well. That using cloud native services, security services which are out there, and open source, you kind of, if you have a well trained team, folks who are not afraid to learn new stuff, right? You can cover a lot of security just like by using the native security services and the open source tools which are out there. If you know how to find your way around it, but if that is difficult, you can, like, something which is making a lot of noise recently is like CASB, Cloud Access Security, like security broker, which provides, like, there are tooling around it, which kind of,
Mhm.
like, if you want someone else to do your dirty work, then you can obviously, like, get some visibility, some compliance, data security, threat protection around that with the same concept. But yeah, in terms of training, I kind of uh, when you're training folks, you want them to be more future proof, and or
Okay.
like it's not like a pen test. You go every quarter and go and train people, right? It's like you
Yeah.
want to like train them a methodology and how to approach
Mhm.
things, right? And cloud native services, like, they are providing more and more security features, like simple things like when container services came out, there was nothing in like which was really scanning them in terms of cloud native services. You were using open source or like a paid source tool to find your way. Now they are integrated within the realm of cloud providers itself. So just to make it a little more like precise, is that if you have a well-trained team, you can find your way with cloud native service and open sources. But if you don't, like, you can offload that work to like an entity which can help you out, where you do spend some money. But uh, uh, approaches like having like a CASB in place can really help you out, like, in the better future.
Right.
Hey,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
I
Also,
ahead.
go
yeah.
ahead.
Go ahead, Ram.
No, no,
So also to add, yeah, sorry about that. I'm just gonna, like, complete this sentence. Uh, Also to add, you have to understand that these cloud native services or open source tools are built by people. They are still engineers at core, right? So you should take them with a grain of salt. And
Yeah.
I am backing this up with, like, my team in past organizations. We've tested some native services and have found 0 days also there, and which we have reported and gotten fixed as well. But take it with a grain of salt. It's yes, they're plug and play. You can find, like, it's better the way, like, they're at a way good spot. But don't be afraid to let your engineering team get that tested from their end as well. And I don't know if they're trained well, they can do a better job at. Yeah. Ram,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Yeah. No, no, I was just gonna build on what you said, Jayesh. As you can imagine, right? Having lived and being an early employee, early product guy at Cypher Cloud, which predates like CASB vendors like Skyhigh and others, right? So at Cypher Cloud, and then even at Redlock, where I had to answer this question, from clients like, "Hey, I'm using this cloud, and isn't my data in this cloud secure just because I'm using this cloud, or because AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, Microsoft, they provide a lot of security themselves." And that is true to a certain extent. That is actually true, right? But you have to also consider the people angle, right? Where most companies, I would say, are not in a single cloud. Most companies have presence in more than one cloud, and it is extremely difficult or near impossible for a security team or a security professional to stay on top of all the services that these cloud service providers uh, provide you, right? I mean, application developers are every single day trying to leverage the latest and greatest that's coming out of these cloud service providers, whether it's AWS, Azure, Microsoft, Salesforce, you name it. But security teams like just can't keep up with the attack surface for each of these services. And uh, especially if you have applications or if you have your data that spans multiple clouds, that's where you do need a third party tool like CASB's, like Cipher Cloud or Redlock, now Prisma Cloud, Ignite. You need these tools to have a single unified platform where you can define your security controls that span multiple clouds. I mean, that has been my personal journey, right?
Yeah.
Started by securing multiple SaaS clouds, then moved to infrastructure clouds, and now securing data in multiple clouds at Ignite. I guess SSPM, CASB, CSPM, and now DSPM, which is data security posture management across multiple clouds. So, and you can train people on one tool that can look at multiple clouds.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So Ram, my next question to you would be, so, when it comes to fintech and financial services companies, what would you say is the biggest challenges for them in terms of adopting new cloud security technologies and processes? Since you mentioned they have like, a lot of compliance requirements and all of that, would you
Yeah,
say that that's specific?
yeah, I would say the biggest challenge for them in terms of using cloud, not cloud security, but using applications in cloud,
Yep.
is the plethora of compliance standards and regulations that they have to adhere to, right? In especially in financial services, there is Sarbanes-Oxley, there is PCI for protecting your credit card data, GLBA for protecting privacy information of your customers, ISO 27001, FFIEC. I mean, the list goes on. So these fintech companies have to not only just secure their applications, their users, and the data, but also understand what each of these regulations mean. And keep in mind that some of these regulations, like Sarbanes-Oxley or even GLBA, were defined 20 years ago, and back then cloud was no one knew about the cloud or how these regulations would apply to the cloud. So someone has to map what these regulations and standards say and how
Yeah.
do they apply to cloud. And it often translates into hundreds of controls for each of these regulations. And again, that's something the native cloud service providers are doing, and we as multi-cloud security vendors have been doing, which is mapping these regulations to cloud security controls. And fortunately, the CSF standard, Cloud Security Framework, is a great starting point where you can implement security controls
Mhm.
for both finance vertical and other verticals.
Would you say there's a lot of like inertia in terms of kind of adopting new technologies and new controls?
Uh, I think maybe there was inertia or there was the fear of unknown
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, but I think that is dramatically changing now, and we're moving in the positive, and everyone's embracing the cloud because they know that that's where the
Okay.
future is. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I
Nice.
know we have only a few minutes left. I do have a hard stop, so let's make sure we give
Yeah,
Jay
sure.
to
Sure.
respond to this. Yeah.
Sure. So my next question to Jayesh. So, if a fintech company asked you to train their team, how exactly would you go about this, and what topics would you focus on the most?
Okay. In the interest of time, I'll keep it short. The Since you're a fintech company, compliance will come to you. You don't have to go there; it'll just find you, right? You'll have a product in place, so the entire suite of product security will come into your picture. Your SAST, your DAST, your SCA. If you're using containers, scan them, clusters, do that, shifting left, all of that will happen. But I think still you got to have a threat detection capability in place and threat response. And
Okay.
that is where it goes. It takes like a crazy level of precedence because fintech companies do get hit hard, right?
Yeah.
So that should be a well formed thing. And if you're on cloud, you might be afraid that there are a lot of unknowns, but there aren't many. It's just someone else, like your infrastructure is sitting somewhere else from
Yeah.
like a click of a button, but essentially compute works in a certain way, right? So that is the place where I would say get that sorted at least, and the other things will just
Right.
follow suit. And like you'd have to do the product security and compliance part. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Right. All right. Thanks. So before we kind of conclude this call, I'd just like to ask Ganga to just kind of give us a quick demo of an AppSec engineer lab related to secrets in AWS. So Ganga, can you take over for me?
Yep. Let me just quickly share my screen.
Sure.
So I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah.
So this is one of the labs that we already have on AppSecEngineer. And because we're talking about data at rest and securing data at rest, we're going to be talking about a concept called envelope encryption. And the idea here is that you have two levels of encryption keys. And one is a customer managed key and another is a data encryption key. And both of these are used to package your data and retrieve them as and when required. We've already built an application that is running on AWS. I will just showcase what we already have and maybe highlight a couple of points of interest here. So what we're looking at here is actually our lab environment. We have an entirely online platform for this, and you actually don't need to use anything. We are a very cloud-centric, platform. So I've already deployed our application onto the AWS cloud, and so we have at this point just registered ourselves, and it's making a sign up request to an application that has been deployed. And a point of interest here is that one of the resources that we're using on AWS is their KMS, the key management service. We have created a customer service a customer managed key, and this is going to allow us to encrypt our secrets from this point forwards. And if you notice, this is what I'm showing you here is our DynamoDB. And if I were to just refresh this page, you will see that I've created a new user, and every user that is created has another key attached to them, and their information is being encrypted as and when they're signing up to our platform. So the customer managed key that I was talking about has been created as well, and this was the policy for the key. We are enforcing that everything that the KMS is doing is set according to this key policy. Another thing that I would talk about here is our application has only two endpoints. One is the sign up URL, and the second is the login URL. The sign up URL is just creating a secret at the point of creation, and this is going to be our data key, which I just showed here. This key, it uses both the information that we've created to create the sign up link, as well as the customer managed key that we've created before. And finally, we also have this is the sign in portion of the response, and let me just showcase that really quickly. Again, and there you go. So we've logged in using the same request, and what this is doing here is it is making sure that the new credentials are being decrypted using both the CMS, the CMK, the customer managed key, as well as the new key that we've created only for this user. So we have two levels of encryption sitting on top of the same layer of data, and this ensures that you have faster response, like faster decryption times, but also much better terms of security. And this is only one example of what we try to showcase here at AppSecEngineer in terms of cloud security. That has been a short demo of our thing. So back to you, Anish.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. That was really interesting. And thank you so much for joining us, Jayesh and Ram. This was a really interesting session, and I'm sure our viewers learned a lot. So this was great. Before we end the call, I just want to remind our viewers that we do have a giveaway of our AWS security bundle going on right now. So in the description of this video on YouTube, you will find a Google form which you can enter your details, and we will be emailing you. If you are the winner, we will be emailing you very soon. So stay tuned for that. All right. So thanks for joining us, Jayesh and Ram, and hopefully we can do this some other time as well.
Absolutely. Have a great
Yes.
week.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.
Yeah.